Scene 6. Introduce the antagonist. Will Big Blue dominate the entire computer industry? Was George Orwell right? Steve Jobs. In every classic story, the hero fights the villain. The same storytelling outline applies to world-class presentations. Steve Jobs establishes the foundation of a persuasive story by introducing his audience to an antagonist, an enemy, a problem in need of a solution. In 1984, the enemy was Big Blue. Apple is behind one of the most influential television ads in history, and one in which we begin to see the hero-villain scenario playing out in Jobs' approach to messaging. The television ad, 1984, introduced Macintosh to the world. It ran only once, during the January 22nd Super Bowl that same year. The Los Angeles Raiders were crushing the Washington Redskins, but more people remember the spot than the score. Ridley Scott, of alien name, directed the Apple ad, which begins with shaven-headed drones listening to their leader, Big Brother, on a giant screen. An athletic blonde, dressed in skimpy 80s-style workout clothes, is running with sledgehammer. Chased by helmeted stormtroopers, the girl throws the hammer into the screen, which explodes in a blinding light as the drones sit with their mouth wide open. The spot ends with a somber announcer saying, "On January 24th, Apple Computer will introduce Macintosh, and you will see why 94 won't be like 1984. Apple's board member had anonymously disliked the commercial and were reluctant to run it. Jobs, of course, supported it because he understood the emotional power behind the classic story structure of the hero and villain. He realized every protagonist needs an enemy. In the case of the historic 1984 television ad, IBM represented the villain. IBM, a mainframe computer maker at the time, had made the decision to build a competitor to the world's first mass-market home computer, the Apple II. Jobs explained the ad in a 1983 keynote presentation to a select group of Apple salespeople who previewed the 60-second television spot. "It's now 1984, said Jobs. "It appears IBM wants it all. Apple is perceived to be the only hope to offer IBM a run for its money. IBM wants it all, and it's aiming its guns on its last obstacle to industry control, Apple. Will Big Blue dominate the entire computer industry, the entire information age? Was George Orwell right?" With that introduction, Jobs stepped aside as the assembled salespeople became the first public audience to see the commercial. The audience erupted into a thunderous cheer. For another 60 seconds, Steve remained on stage, basking in the adulation, his smile a mile wide. His posture, body language, and facial expression said it all. "I nailed it." Problem plus solution equals classic Jobs. Introducing the antagonist, the problem, rallies the audience around the hero, the solution. Jobs structures his most exciting presentations around this classic storytelling device. For example, 30 minutes into one of his most triumphant presentations, the launch of the iPhone at Macworld 2007, he spent 3 minutes explaining why the iPhone is a product whose time has come. The villain in this case included all the current smartphones on the market, which Jobs would argue weren't very smart. Listed in the left column of the table 6.1 are excerpts from the actual presentation. The right column shows the words or describes the images on the accompanying slides. Pay attention to how the slides act as a complement to the speaker. Table 6.1, Jobs' iPhone keynote presentation. Steve's words. "The most advanced phones are called smartphones, so they say." Steve's slides, smartphone. They typically combine a phone plus email plus a baby internet. Smartphone, phone plus email plus internet. The problem is they're not so smart and they're not so easy to use. They're really complicated. What we want to do is make a leapfrog product that is way smarter than any mobile device has ever been. Smartphone, not so smart, not so easy to use. So we're going to reinvent the phone. We're going to start with a revolutionary user interface, revolutionary UI. It's the result of years of research and development. Revolutionary UI, years of research and development. Why do we need a revolutionary user interface? Here are 4 smartphones: the Motorola Q, BlackBerry, Palm Treo, Nokia E62, the usual suspects. Imagine of 4 existing smartphones: Motorola Q, BlackBerry, Palm Treo, and Nokia E62. What's wrong with their user interface? The problem with them is in the bottom 40. It's this stuff right there, points to keyboards on the phones. They all have these keyboards that are there whether you need them or not, and they all have these control buttons that are fixed in plastic and are the same for every application. Well, every application wants a slightly different user interface, a slightly optimized set of buttons just for it. And what happens if you think of a great idea 6 months from now? You can't add a button to these things. They're already shipped. So what do? The top half of each image fades away, leaving just the bottom half of the keyboards. What we're going to do is get rid of all these buttons and just make a giant screen, image of iPhone. How are we going to communicate with this? We don't want to carry around the mouse. So what are we going to do? A stylus? Right. We're going to use a stylus. Image of iPhone on its side. A stylus fades in. No, laughs. Who wants a stylus? You have to get them out. Put them away. You lose them. Yuck, nobody wants a stylus. Words appear next to image. Who wants a stylus? So let's not use a stylus. We're going to use the best pointing device in the world. A pointing device that we're all born with. We're born with 10 of them. We'll use our fingers. Stylus fades out of frame as image of index finger appears next to iPhone. We have invented a new technology called multi-touch, which is phenomenal. Finger fades out and the words appears. Multi-touch. It works like magic. You don't need a stylus. It's far more accurate than any touch display that's ever been shipped. It ignores unintended touches. It's super smart. You can do multi-finger gestures on it, and boy have we patented it. Laughter. Words reveal upper right. Works like magic. No stylus. Far more accurate. Ignores unintended touches. Multi-finger gestures. Patented. Make note of how Jobs asks rhetorical questions to advance the story. Why do we need a revolutionary user interface? He asked before introducing the problem. He even raises problems to his own solution. When he introduced the concept of replacing the keyboard with a touchscreen, he rhetorically asked, how are we going to communicate with this? His ready answer was, we are going to use the best pointing device in the world, our fingers. Nobody really cares about your product or Apple's products or Microsoft's or any other companies for that matter. What people care about is solving problems and making their lives a little better. As in the smartphone example in table 6.1, Jobs describes the pain they're feeling, gives them a reason for their pain, usually caused by competitors, and as you will learn in scene 7, offers a cure. Making his case to CNBC. Why in the world would Apple want to jump into the handset market with so much competition and so many players? Asked CNBC's Jim Goldman in one of the few interviews Jobs granted immediately after the iPhone announcement. Jobs answered the question by posing a problem in need of a solution. We used all the handsets out there, and boy is it frustrating. It's a category that needs to be reinvented. Handsets need to be more powerful and much easier to use. We thought we could contribute something. We don't mind if there are other companies making products. The fact is there were 1 billion handsets sold in 2006. If we just got 1% market share, that's 10 million units. We've reinvented the phone and completely changed the expectation for what you can carry in your pocket. What message is this sending to your competitors? Asked Goldman. We're a product company. We love great products. In order to explain what our product is, we have to contrast it to what products are out there right now and what people use, said Jobs. This last sentence reveals Jobs' approach to crafting a persuasive story. Explanations of new product or services require context, a relevance to a problem in your customer's life that is causing that person's pain. Once the pain is established, your listener will be much more receptive to a product or service that will alleviate that pain. The Apple Religion. In his book Biology, marketing guru Martin Lindstrom equates Apple's messages with the same powerful ideas that propel widespread religions. Both appeal to a common vision and a specific enemy. Most religions have a clear vision, writes Lindstrom. By that I mean they're unambiguous in their missions, whether it's to achieve a certain state of grace or achieve a spiritual goal. And of course, most companies have unambiguous missions as well. Steve Jobs' vision dates back to the mid-1980s, when he said, "Man is the creator of change in this world. As such, he should be above systems and structures and not subordinate to them." 20 years and a few million iPods later, the company still pursues this vision. According to Lindstrom, who spent years studying the common traits of lasting brands, religions and brands such as Apple have another quality in common: the idea of conquering a shared enemy. Having an identifiable enemy gives us the chance not only to articulate and showcase our faith, but also to unite ourselves with our fellow believers. This us versus them strategy attracts fans, incites controversy, creates loyalty, and gets us thinking and arguing and, of course, buying. Will it eat me? Establishing the antagonist early is critical to persuasion because our brains needs a bucket, a category in which to place a new idea. Think about it this way: your brain craves meaning before details. According to scientist John Medina, our brains were formed to see the big picture. Medina says that when primitive man saw a saber-toothed tiger, he asked himself, "Will it eat me?" and not, "How many teeth does it have?" The antagonist gives your audience the big picture. Don't start with the details, start with the key ideas, and in a hierarchical fashion, form the detail around these larger notions, writes Medina in his book Brain Rules. In presentation, start with the big picture, the problem, before filling in the details, your solution. Apple unveiled the Safari web browser during Macworld 2003, designating in the fastest browser on the Mac. Safari would join several other browsers vying for attention in the face of Microsoft's juggernaut Internet Explorer. At his persuasive best, Jobs set up the problem, introducing the antagonist simply by asking a rhetorical question: why do we need our own browser? Before demonstrating the new features, filling in the details, he needed to establish a reason for the product's existence. Jobs told the audience that there were two areas in which competitors such as Internet Explorer, Netscape, and others fell short: speed and innovation. In terms of speed, Jobs said Safari would load pages 3 times faster than Internet Explorer on the Mac. In the area of innovation, Jobs discussed the limitation of current browsers, including the fact that Google search was not provided in the main toolbar and that organizing bookmarks left a lot to be desired. What we found in our research is that people don't use bookmarks. They don't use favorites very much because this stuff is complicated and nobody has figured out how to use it, Jobs said. Safari would fix the problems by incorporating Google search into the main toolbar and adding features that would allow users to more easily navigate back to previous sites or favorite web pages. One simple sentence is all you need to introduce the antagonist. Why do you need this? This one question allows Jobs to review the current state of the industry, whether it be browsers, operating system, digital music, or any other facet, and to set the stage for the next step in his presentation, offering the solution. The 3,000-minute pitch. During 1 week in September, dozens of entrepreneurs pitched their startups to influential groups of media experts and investors at 2 separate venues, TechCrunch 50 in San Francisco and Demo in San Diego. For startup founders, these high-stakes presentations mean the difference between success and obsolescence. TechCrunch organizers believe that 8 minutes is the ideal amount of time in which to communicate an idea. If you cannot express your idea in 8 minutes, the thinking, the goals, you need to refine your idea. Demo gives its presenters even less time, 6 minutes. Demo also charges an 18,500 fee to present, or 3,000 per minute. If you had to pay 3,000 a minute to pitch your idea, how would you approach it? The consensus among venture capitalists who attend the presentations is that the most entrepreneurs fail to create an intriguing storyline because they jump right into their product without explaining the problem. One investor told me, "You need to create a new space in my brain to hold the information you're about to deliver. It turns me off when entrepreneurs offer a solution without setting up the problem. They have a pot of coffee, their idea, without a cup to pour it in. Your listeners' brains have only so much room to absorb new information. It's as if most presenters try to squeeze 2 megabytes of data into a pipe that carries 128 kilobytes. It's simply too much." A company called Travel Muse had one of the most outstanding pitches in Demo 2008. Founder Kevin Flates opened his pitch this way: "The largest and most mature online retail segment is travel, totaling more than $90 billion in the United States alone. Establishes category. We all know how to book a trip online, but booking is the last 5% of the process, begins to introduce problem. The 95% that comes before booking, deciding where to go, building a plan, is where all the heavy lifting happens. At Travel Muse, we make planning easy by seamlessly integrating content with trip planning tools to provide a complete experience, offers solution. By introducing the category and the problem before introducing the solution, Flights created a cup to pour the coffee into. Investors are buying a stake in ideas. As such, they want to know what pervasive problem the company's product addresses. A solution in search of a problem carries far less appeal. Once the problem and solution are established, investors feel comfortable moving on to questions regarding the size of the market, the competition, and the business model. The ultimate elevator pitch. The problem needs to take long to establish. Jobs generally takes just a few minutes to introduce the antagonist. You can do so in as little as 30 seconds. Simply create a one-sentence answer for the following 4 questions. What do you do? What problem do you solve? How are you different? Why should I care? When I worked with executives at Language Line in Monterey, California, we crafted an elevator pitch based on answers to the 4 questions. If we did our job successfully, the following pitch should tell you a lot about the company. Language Line is the world's largest provider of phone interpretation services for companies who want to connect with their non-English speaking customers. What it does: every 23 seconds, someone who doesn't speak English enters this country. The problem: when he or she calls a hospital, a bank, an insurance company, or 911, it's likely that a language line interpreter is on the other end. How it's different? We help you talk to your customer, patients, or sales prospects in 150 languages. Why you should care? The Antagonist, a convenient storytelling tool. Steve Jobs and former US Vice President turned global warming expert Al Gore share three things in common: a commitment to the environment, a love for Apple — Al Gore sits on Apple's board — and an engaging presentation style. Al Gore's award-winning documentary An Inconvenient Truth is a presentation designed with Apple storytelling devices in mind. Gore gives his audience a reason to listen by establishing a problem everyone can agree on. Critics may differ on the solution, but the problem is generally accepted. Gore begins his presentation, his story, by setting the stage for his argument. In a series of colorful images of Earth taken from various space missions, he not only gets audience to appreciate the beauty of our planet, but also introduces the problem. Gore opens with a famous photograph called Earthrise, the first look at Earth from the moon's surface. Then Gore reveals a series of photographs in later years showing signs of global warming, such as melting ice caps, receding shorelines, and hurricanes. The ice has a story to tell us, he says. Gore then describes the villain in more explicit terms. The burning of fossil fuels such as coal, gas, and oil has dramatically increased the amount of carbon dioxide in the Earth's atmosphere, causing global temperature to rise. In one of the most memorable scenes of the documentary, Gore explains the problem by showing two colored lines, red and blue, representing levels of carbon dioxide and average temperature going back 600,000 years. According to Gore, when there is more carbon dioxide, the temperature gets warmer. He then reveals a slide that shows the graph climbing to the highest level of carbon dioxide in our planet's history, which represents where the level is today. Now, if you'll bear with me, I want to really emphasize this next point. Gore says as he climbs onto a mechanical lift. He presses a button and the lift carries him what appears to be at least 5 feet. He is now parallel with the point on the graph representing current CO2 emissions. This elicits a small laugh from his audience. It's funny but insightful at the same time. In less than 50 years, he goes on to say, it's going to continue to go up. When some of these children who are here are my age, here's where it's going to be. At this point, Gore presses the button again, and the lift carries him higher for about 10 seconds. As he's tracking the graph upwards, he turns to the audience and says, "You've heard of the charts. Well, here's where we're going to be in less than 50 years. It's funny, memorable, and powerful at the same time. Gore takes facts, figures, and statistics and bring them to life. Gore uses many of the same presentation and rhetorical techniques that we see in the Steve Jobs presentation. Among them are the introduction of the enemy or the antagonist. Both men introduced an antagonist early, rallying the audience around a common purpose. In a Jobs presentation, once the villain is clearly established, it's time to open the curtain to reveal the character who will save the day, the conquering hero." Director's note: introduce the antagonist early in your presentation. Always establish the problem before revealing your solution. You can do so by painting a vivid picture of your customer's pain point. Set up the problem by asking, why do we need this? Spend some time describing the problem in detail. Make it tangible. Build the pain. Create an elevator pitch for your product using the 4-step methods described in this chapter. Pay particular attention to question number 2. What problem do you solve? Remember, nobody cares about your product. People care about solving their problems.